Okay, ladies, welcome to our Teaching Tuesday with Nicole Snell. You are going to love her. She's absolutely fabulous. I met Nicole, I want to say it was probably about a year ago. A good client and friend of mine, Dr. Lori Monaco, introduced me to Nicole and said, oh my gosh, you guys have to meet because she's all about self-defense and you're just going to love her. And we met, and of course, I fell in love with Nicole right away. She's absolutely awesome. And I just love the journey that she's on in empowering women through safety. And so she'll be talking a lot about that today. And the reason why we do these Teaching Tuesdays are to educate the community. We do this to educate all of you. We do this so that you have the opportunity to be able to learn more from our community members and add some more tools to your tool belt. So we talk about everything from safety and self-defense to managing your real estate and your will and your estates to running your business. So again, thank you so much for being here and taking part in this. This is definitely a perk of Lead Up for Women for not only our members to be able to attend, but it's also a big perk for you as a member of Lead Up for Women to be able to have and hold this spot of a Teaching Tuesday for each one of you to be able to teach what it is that you teach and expand your influence to attract the right clients to you. And I know every single one of you that are on here today so far are members. So if you have not already booked out your Teaching Tuesday spot, all you have to do is private message me in the chat, and I will make sure that I send you over the link during this presentation. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and let Nicole get started.
Thank you so much, Colleen. Hello, good morning, good afternoon, everyone, wherever you are today. I am Nicole. Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, Colleen. I am so excited to be here with you all. For me, it's the morning. Welcome to my space. We're virtual still, we're via Zoom, but if you can't tell already, I have a lot of energy. And so I'm gonna bring that energy to all of you, and I'm going to keep this presentation as interactive as it can be via Zoom. I'm probably gonna ask you some questions in the chat. And if you have any questions as we go through today's Teaching Tuesday, feel free to ask. You can raise your hand and I'll call on you, or if Colleen sees someone that I don't call in, you're welcome to just hop in and call on somebody so we can get those questions answered. And if there's something that you want to ask and maybe you don't want to ask it in front of everybody, that's okay. You can send me a private message on the chat. I'll ask the question and I won't reveal who asked that question. So I'm going to go ahead and get started by sharing my screen. Give me just 1 second. Let me make sure it is up. Okay, let me get in here, and here we go. So today's Teaching Tuesday is solo travel tips for empowerment and safety. I want to start out by explaining to you how much solo travel means to me. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this topic today is not only because I've done a lot of solo travel and I really believe in travel's ability to connect us to the world, to connect us to different cultures, to change our perspectives, and to rediscover more of who we are, but I also believe in the power of being able to experience something on your own and to feel that independence and to be able to do it. And I know that for some people are like me, they love solo traveling, they've done it a lot. And there's others that maybe haven't dabbled in it very much. Maybe you haven't taken a solo trip yet. Maybe you're considering it. Maybe you think that's something you never want to do. And no matter how you come here today, all those perspectives are welcome. And today is not about trying to encourage you to solo travel if you don't want to. It's about encouraging you to consider it if that's something that you're already considering, and offer you some empowerment tools so that whether you want to solo travel or you just want to feel comfortable walking alone at night, or if you just want to have some additional tools for your toolbox, as Colleen mentioned, this is what today is all about. So whether you are experienced or new, I'm hoping that everyone will find a little bit something today. So I want to start off by telling you, this is what we're going to cover today. I'm going to talk to you about my story, how I got into solo travel, got into solo hiking, camping, solo backpacking, things like that. And I want to then talk about the facts. So we're going to talk about some facts. I'm going to do some myth busting. Then I'm going to talk about some inspiring stories. And I find that sharing personal stories can be helpful for other people to connect and relate. So I'm going to share some of my personal travel stories. And if you have any of your stories or anything that you want to share during that time as well, that I would love for us to kind of have a conversation about that so we can all empower each other with our stories of travel. And then I'm going to talk about some simple safety strategies for solo travel that you can apply, not just to solo travel, but to anywhere. And I guess this is a great time for me to ask you in the chat, how many of you all have taken a solo trip? So if you've taken a solo trip, in the chat, let me know. If you haven't, also let me know. Just say, yes, I have, or no, I haven't, or however you want to answer. I just kind of want to get a gauge for where we are at this morning. Yes, I have. Oh, great. Of course, Colleen, of course you have. Anybody else? Have you taken a solo trip? That's the question.
Come on, Lynn.
Have you
I know
taken
you've
one?
taken a solo trip. Yes, I knew she
Many.
was going to say
Great.
yes.
Awesome. Anyone haven't or considering it? Yes. Okay, great. Looks like we have a lot of solo. Wonderful. I love solo traveling. It is one of my favorite things to do. One of the many things that I miss because of the pandemic, but hoping that I will be getting back to it soon. I've been taking more solo road trips and things like that, but I can't wait to get back on a plane and do some solo travel internationally again. I haven't, but I will be in a couple months. Well, great, Jamie. Then hopefully I will be offering you some things that you can take. And for those of us who have already solo traveled, maybe I can give you some additional things to think about and some additional things to help us feel more confident when we are out there. Well, let me tell you a little bit about me. First of all, this is one of my favorite pictures of one of my trips. This is at the Vinicunca Mountains in Peru. I saw a picture of it as I was planning my trip to Peru, my solo trip to Peru, and found out that this was only 3 hours away. And so I fit that into my trip, and I came out there, and yeah, it was a little bit of a cloudy day, but you can still see the colors. This picture is not pumped up or oversaturated in pulse. This was what it really looked like, but it was still beautiful with all of those colors, and it was just amazing to finally be there. But I want to tell you a little bit about my story and how I got started. I grew up in the deserts of Southern California, and I had the pleasure of having the entire desert basically as my playground as I was growing up. You could not keep me in the house. I was always outside. I was playing in the dirt. I was collecting rocks, which I still do to this day. Just, that's a little secret about me that not everybody knows. I still do collect rocks. I like them. I go on a hike and I'm like, ooh, pretty rock. I usually put it back when I am out hiking because I don't want to remove things. But, I'll go to like rock stores and things where you can actually buy them. And I'm still very much a rock collector. And I would, my older brother had taught me how to catch grasshoppers. So I was always outside. I just loved being outside. I loved being in nature. And I grew up near Joshua Tree National Park. My family wasn't very outdoorsy. We didn't go to the park as often as you would think that we would, but there were washes and fields out by my house. And when I was young, my sisters would go with me. And when I got older, junior high school, then I was allowed to kind of go and roam by myself. I remember one of the first times I took a walk by myself, and I just felt so free. I felt so independent. I mean, yes, my house was only a few blocks away, but it was just me, and I got to experience, what was happening outside in the big world. Even though I grew up in a small town, it still was a big deal for me. And that sense of awe and that sense of wonder and feeling like I could tackle anything. It was great. I was always so curious as well. And that curiosity has not waned as I've gotten older and become an adult. Finding new animals or new insects or seeing a new plant or finding a new trail, things like that really excited me. I also remember my family would take occasional trips to visit my aunt who lived in the mountains. And going from a desert landscape to the mountains was a real treat for me. And again, exploring around my aunt's house and the trees, and the neighbors had donkeys that I would go and I would feed them after dinner and got to do, connect with animals. It really just kind of stoked this love in me of the outdoors and exploration and feeling at home and at peace and safe in nature. And then fast forward to, you get a little bit older and people start telling you that as a woman, it's not safe to travel by yourself. And maybe you shouldn't go by yourself. And maybe, it's too dangerous if you do this by yourself. And you should always go with somebody. And all of these negative messages started coming in. And I've always been a very stubborn, headstrong individual. And of course, my response to those was, I'm going to do what I want to do, and you can't stop me. If I'm being honest, I was going to do these trips. I was going to be as prepared as I could be. And this is before I had any self-defense training. And I put it in quotes because we're going to talk about that, like the connotation of self-defense training versus a lot of what it actually is. So no, I didn't have 20 years of martial arts experience and, was a black belt in several disciplines. So of course, I'm in my early 20s and I'm traveling. So I'm thinking, okay, well, I'm going to be as prepared as I can be. And I am going to enjoy my trip and just use my street smarts and make good decisions and ask for help if I need it and go out and do it. And I didn't let those voices and that negativity stop me. And as I got older and I started actually teaching self-defense, and I'll tell you a bit about that story in just a second, I wanted to empower others that were also getting these messages, these disempowering messages, these messages about why we have to live in this world full of don't do this and don't wear that and don't drink this and don't wear your hair like this and don't go to, all of these things that are meant to limit our lives and have us living in fear. And I don't believe in teaching us to live in fear. I understand that a lot of people have fear and that there are things that happen in the world that we should be aware of, and that we can be aware of those things and also live an empowered life, that we don't have to limit ourselves, because I can teach you some very simple tools and very simple strategies that we can have so that we can go out and do the things we want to do while managing our safety and not living in that fear response. How did I get into self-defense? So I told you a little bit about how my backstory and how I love solo travel. I guess I should finish out that story and say the first time that I took a trip as an adult, my first international solo trip was to Rome. I was working in TV production, and our crew, we were all filming in Germany, in Wiesbaden. And when we were booking the trip, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm going to be so close to Rome. I should just go. I should just do it. And so I booked the trip, and I remember we're at the airport, we're in Frankfurt, and I said goodbye to my crew. They were going back to the US, and I was going on to Rome, my first time that really far away from everybody that I knew internationally. I had been traveling internationally with, with groups and work and things, but my first time on my own. And I got on that plane and I had a mix of emotions. I felt excited. And then I also felt a little nervous. Like, am I going to have enough to do? Am I going to be able to find my way around? What happens if I get lost? How am I going to handle, if my plans get changed? And am I going to be able to see the things that I want to see? All these questions. But then I also felt this overwhelming sense of freedom. Like, I am going to be able to do what I want to do when I want to do it on my own schedule. And there was something so incredibly awesome about that fact. And I got there and I had the most incredible time. And that just kickstarted my journey into solo travel, solo travel internationally, solo travel within the US, road trips, camping, hiking, and so on and so forth. You just can't stop me. And I love doing things solo. So I don't know about any of you, if you want to answer in the chat, how many of you, like, what is it about solo travel that you really enjoy? And I'll, as you are filtering in any answers on that, I'm going to go on and explain a little bit of my self-defense background and why I teach and why I do what I do. As I told you, I grew up in the desert. I was always an athletic kid. I loved doing sports. I did do martial arts a little bit, but as you're growing up, you have to do what your parents allow you to do. And so I was only allowed to do a little bit. And, I get into college and I was an adult, still, loving to do outdoor sports, moving my body, things like that. And I remember a few years, it's more than a few years now. So it's like 10 or so years ago, I was dating a guy and we were play wrestling in my apartment, just having fun, just play wrestling. And he pinned me to the ground and then I couldn't get out of it. And he was laughing and it was all in fun. I was not in any danger in that moment, but it went from being fun to having a little alarm bell go off in the back of my head that said, whoa, wait a second, Nicole. What if this was real? What if he really was pinning you? What if it wasn't him? What if it was somebody else? And you don't know how to get out of this. I did not like that feeling of not knowing. I didn't like that feeling of not having an option in that moment and just pulling a blank in my brain when I reached for a solution. And that's what brought me to self-defense. And I started taking, I took a couple of self-defense classes and really started feeling empowered. And then my career trajectory shifted from being in TV production to being in women's empowerment. And that shift happened because I was working as the director of digital production at an international production company. And they were laying off our department. And around the same time, I was connected with a group I had done work with who did domestic violence prevention and sexual assault prevention workshops when I was in college. And they had been contracted by the military, the US military, to do some trainings. And I kind of shifted because I thought, well, okay, now that, my production job is ending, I can start doing this. And I've always wanted to do more. And I've wanted to help people and do this kind of work that's a bit more, rewarding and socially conscious and, supporting women. Let me do this for a bit and see how this goes. And through that company, I met the owners at the time of Girls Fight Back, which is the company that I now own. I met the owners of Girls Fight Back and I saw that they did self-defense training for high schools, colleges. They traveled around, they did these speaking engagements, teaching self-defense. And I thought, oh my gosh, how do I get involved in this? So I asked for a job and they didn't have a job available. But 3 months later, they did. And they called me. And I started training to be a speaker. And part of that training was to graduate from a 20-hour full contact, full force self-defense course with impact personal safety, which I completed and thought, I want to teach this too. So I was trained to be an impact lead instructor, which I am now an impact lead instructor. And I was also a speaker with Girls Fight Back, was speaking for them for 6 years. And then last year, 2020, during the pandemic, the opportunity came to purchase the company. And I did, which was a very scary thing to do in the middle of a pandemic. But I did it because I believe so strongly in this work. I believe in empowerment. I believe in offering people the skills and the strategies to live their lives on their own terms without limits. And I'm never going to stop doing this work. And it applies to not only our solo travels and our safety when we're out in the world, but it also applies to our safety in our work environments, in our personal lives, with our friends. Everything that we do in our life as we move through the world, we can use the skills like boundary setting and speaking up for ourselves and using our voice and using our intuition, things like that. So when I said earlier that, as a kid, but when I first started solo traveling, I didn't have quote unquote self-defense training. That was because I thought self-defense needed to be, something that I had trained and studied for years in order to be proficient at it. And what I learned is that so much of what we all already do is a form of self-defense. Trusting your intuition, that's self-defense. Using your awareness and having situational awareness about a situation, that is also a form of self-defense. Trusting your intuition and then taking active steps to get yourself to safety or to manage the situation in a way that gets you out of harm's way. Guess what? That is also a form of self-defense. So those were things I was already doing without understanding that that was already a form of self-protection and self-defense. And that's why I focus really heavily on those things in my courses and my programs, because of how important that knowledge is, that the skills that we have are already accessible to us. And when we can harness that, it makes us even more powerful. So I bought the company Girls Fight Back, and now I continue the work. The company was started in 2001 by a woman named Erin Weed, and it was founded in honor of her friend Shannon McNamara, who was murdered in her off-campus apartment. And Erin was so inspired by how hard Shannon fought that she started the program, and she never wanted Shannon's memory to be forgotten. And I told her that I would make sure that that never happened, that I would continue this work. I would continue to have Shannon be an inspiration to all of us, that we are powerful, that we are worth it. And because of Shannon, we have empowered over 1 million people around the world. And because of Shannon, we have probably prevented violence in many different situations and given people the skills and tools to be able to live a more confident and free life. And that is what I want to continue to do. And that is why I'm doing this work. So thank you for listening to my intro story. And I hope if you have any questions, please feel free to pop it in the chat or raise your hand and you can ask out loud if you'd like. But I'd like to now break down some facts to know when it comes to safety and self-defense. for solo traveling. And again, you can apply these to all aspects of your life. The first thing to know is that you have options. You are not helpless. There are so many messages that we get in the world that says that women, people who identify as women, people who are perceived to be women, regardless of how they identify their own gender, if they are perceived by someone else to be a woman, then these stereotypes tend to apply that, oh, you're helpless, oh, you're weak, you don't have any options. I remember reading an article several months ago, I believe, and I'm not even going to repeat what they said because it's so disempowering, but I read it and it was basically along these lines of, oh, there's nothing that you can do, or, women are helpless, etc. And I wanted to contact the author and just sit down and have a conversation and ask why would you write this? Why, and what makes you think this? And please let me change your mind. Let me explain to you why that is wrong and why we need to, write something else that is more empowering instead. So what I mean by that is we have so many options on our body, and we have so many options with our mind and with our ways of dealing with a situation that we may encounter when we're traveling. And we're not helpless, regardless of our age, our body type, our racial background, our ethnicity, our ability level, our athleticism, and none of those things really matter because we still have options. None of those things is going to prevent you from being able to manage your safety and make choices that work best for you. And when I teach my classes, I don't want to say so many different because I don't want you to think, oh my God, there's 20 or 50 things that I have to memorize. I keep it really simple, but I explain all the ways in which we do have options for managing ourselves and that we are not helpless. And personal safety isn't one size fits all. What works for me is not necessarily going to work for somebody else. And what I mean by that is the strategy I may think is most effective for me to get out of a situation may not be what someone else chooses. They may choose a different strategy, and that's fine because everything we face is different. There are so many different possibilities of scenarios we may encounter, and we all come into the scenarios with our own background, with our own expectations, how we're feeling that day. It's always changing and shifting. That's why I teach it in a way that you get to pick what works best for you, depending on your individual situation. It's not as simple as, well, if X happens, you always do Y. It's not that simple. And it's not something where you have to memorize a bunch of things and, apply it in that way. It's very malleable and flexible to you. There is no right way to do self-defense. There are no rules when it comes to self-defense. Self-defense is not about what you should do. It's about what you can do, what's available to you in the moment. And that is where we find our empowerment. Self-defense isn't just physical. We just talked about this. How many of you, when you hear of self-defense before today, how many of you thought of self-defense and thought it was purely physical? Like the term self-defense comes up and you're thinking, oh, that's the punches, it's the kicks. How many of you like that? Or how many of you thought that? So I just opened up the chat at the same time, and so my brain kind of scattered. But how many of you thought that it was that's what it meant to you when you heard that term? And I see in the chat, Annie says, I like the silence. If you mean the silence when you're solo traveling, I am right there with you. I do also enjoy the silence. I like being around people. I'm an extrovert, but I also do like my alone time as well. Physical is what I think of first. Yeah, I think that's what a lot of people tend to think. And don't get me wrong, the physical is a big part of it. It is really important when we know that we have the ability to back up ourselves, our minds, and the other strategies we have with our bodies. When you can walk through the world and know, like, you know what, if I needed to defend myself physically, I'm going to avoid it as much as I can. But if I have to, I have the ability to do it. That can change your confidence level and how you walk through the world. Colleen, I'm sure you can attest to that with all of the self-defense, the training and the martial arts, and you are a black belt as well. So she knows how to use her body. And I'm sure that affects how you walk through the world as well, as I know it does mine and others that have taken self-defense. But it's not just the physical. So much about it is the things that I talked about just a bit ago. Your intuition, your awareness, the idea that if you can avoid a fight, that's self-defense. And that's a win. If you don't have to engage in a physical confrontation, that's a win. If you can get to safety, that's a win. I could tell you I mean, so many different stories in my life that have happened where I ended up, where I haven't actually used my physical skills. And in fact, with all of the training that I have hours of training in full contact, full force stress inoculation training through Impact Personal Safety, where we use adrenaline to learn how to fight and get the movements into procedural memory. With hours of training and weapons defense and ground fighting and rear attacks, with all the training, I've not had to use any of my physical skills. I haven't walked around heel palming anyone who, said something inappropriate to me when I was traveling. Not yet. But I have used my verbal skills plenty of times. I've trusted my intuition. I have, decided to turn and walk away or do something that I needed to. So knowing that we have those options as well and using those to manage our safety on a daily, those are things that we actually do use daily. We don't walk around heel palming people. At least I don't. I don't know if any of y'all do, but please do not let anyone say that I endorse that, because I do not. Another thing about safety is the stranger danger myth. Have we all heard that? I know there's a lot more information now, and I think that it's starting to wane, it's starting to be uncovered that is actually a myth. But I know a lot of times people still have this idea that strangers are the most dangerous people that we need to be worried about. And that is a myth. The majority of the time, women, we are attacked by people we know. Right now, the statistic is at 86%. 86% of the time, we are assaulted by someone we know. And that's a really scary statistic for a lot of people to think about, that, we're around people we know most of the time, and those are the people that we need to be most concerned about. And it's that stranger attacks do happen. Yes, they do happen. But we are more at risk from people we know statistically than we are from strangers. And not all strangers mean us harm. That's why the importance of setting boundaries, of trusting your intuition, regardless of who the person is really important for us feeling empowered to speak up and say something, or seek out help if we feel like that's what we need to do, or to, set those strong boundaries or use our verbal skills. It can be important regardless if we're dealing with strangers or if we're dealing with people we know. Here's a great question for you all. Is it easier for you to set a boundary with someone you know or a stranger? You can answer in the chat. Is it easier to set a boundary with a stranger, or is it easier to set a boundary with someone you know? A stranger. Yeah, for me, it's easier with a stranger as well. Stranger, with a stranger. Great. So most of you answered with a stranger. I'll give it a second. I'll start talking and I'll look at the chat and see if any other answers come in. A lot of times people feel more comfortable setting a boundary with a stranger. Now, let me ask you, I can tell you what I've heard all the times that I've done this presentation and talked about this. People tell me, but please tell me why, for you, why is it easier to set a boundary with a stranger? I know there's a lot of, relational factors that could be involved, maybe no emotional connection. Yeah, exactly. That's one of the first things that people always say. There's no emotional connection. If this person, gets really mad and angry at you, I mean, yeah, you might feel a little uncomfortable in the moment, but you're never going to see this person again. So there's less risk, so to speak, as far as like a relationship. You don't want to hurt someone's feelings. Yeah, if it's someone you know and you have to set a boundary, you may be concerned that you'll hurt the other person's feelings, but you don't care if you hurt the stranger's feelings. I know if someone's going to be disrespectful to me and I need to set a boundary and they get their feelings hurt, for me, it doesn't matter if they're a stranger or someone I know. You cross my boundary, I'm going to assert my boundary, and my boundary belongs to me, and you need to respect that. But a lot of times we tend to be really concerned about what the other person thinks when it's someone we know. A lot of times we can set it with a stranger because we really don't care what they think. There's no relationship. We're never going to see them again, most likely. We don't have to worry about them communicating with anyone that we know and maybe saying something to someone we know, things like that. Whereas if it's someone we know, well, then we might see them again. We might work with them. They might be a family member. We might hurt their feelings. We might feel like we'll damage the relationship, things like that. But your safety and your comfort is more important than someone else's feelings. And when we're out and we're traveling, especially if we're traveling solo, we may travel solo, but we're going to connect with people when we're there. I may get on my plane and land by myself, but when I get to the hostel or the hotel, I'm going to meet people. I'm going to make friends. When I get in with the tour group for the day, I'm probably going to connect with people, and you're going to be making friends as you go along. And then people change from strangers to now acquaintances and maybe even friends. I've made some great friends while I've been solo traveling. And so the ability to set our boundaries and say what we need is really important. And if the other person gets their feelings hurt or they get offended because you set a boundary, that's on them. We don't need to diminish our boundary or hold back from saying what we need in concern of taking care of someone else's feelings at the expense of our own, because our feelings do matter, and it's okay to speak up and say what we need. So let's move on. Your voice is a powerful tool and it's a weapon. How many of you have heard that? Has anyone ever told you that your voice is a tool and it's a weapon? Some people say, oh my gosh, yes. There was someone who said, oh yeah, in my theater class, they would always tell us that. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. Your tool, especially, if you're singing, your voice is a tool. Absolutely. But your voice is also a weapon. And it's also the first weapon that we use to be able to speak up for ourselves and to assert our boundaries. And when we're in the context of self-defense, where we might have to use our voice in a yell, now it becomes a weapon because that is an attack. When we yell, when we assert ourselves, when we say a command to someone who is harassing us or threatening us, and for whatever reason we're not able to get away and we have to use the voice first, that is often our first weapon to be able to assert that, hey, you know what, I'm setting a boundary, I need you to back away, leave me alone. And it can also get the attention of other people nearby as well. Your voice has a lot of power. And setting boundaries can be an effective deterrent. I talk so much about setting boundaries in my speaking engagements and the programs that I do, because setting boundaries are really important. It's something that we do it all the time, sometimes without even thinking about it, but our boundaries guide how we interact with the world. It tells other people how we want to be interacted with, and we take cues from other people to determine what they need and what they want too. And we live our whole lives in this dance of determining, boundaries and understanding the norms for where we are. But we also have to be comfortable speaking up for what we need, because not everybody might know our boundaries, especially if we're traveling to a country that is different from the country that we are originally from. And we have to learn new customs and new cultural things that we are not accustomed to in our culture. And we have to be aware that someone may set a boundary with us, or we may need to set a boundary. For instance, when I travel to Europe, especially like Italy and France, a lot of times people stand a lot closer than they do in the United States. And if that's a little too close for me. So I might have to set a boundary and say something like, I need just a little bit more space. I'm going to take a step back, or can you take a step back? Just to, let them know what you need. And now they can be respectful of that. And you've communicated it. And it's not this ambiguous kind of interaction. You've been really clear about what you need and in a respectful way. And that's something that you can do regardless of where you're traveling. And the way that it can be an effective deterrent is, a lot of times assailants are looking for people who they consider to be vulnerable, accessible, distracted, or lacking in credibility. And if we set firm boundaries, then we set the tone really clearly of our expectations for what we want the other person to do and how we expect to be treated. And that can be a deterrent for someone who is looking for that vulnerability, that distractedness. Now we're showing that we are none of those things. And that can be a deterrent to someone who is seeking out someone that is displaying other qualities. So setting boundaries can be really effective and can be a deterrent to that, because a boundary is there not just to set our space and inform our interactions, but it's also for safety as well. And assailants have to try to push through our boundaries. They have to try to get closer to us. They have to try to maybe convince us that they're safe. They may try to use our niceness against us and try to use social norms to make us feel more comfortable accepting the ride, or, allowing them into our space, things like that, as a way of trying to push through our boundaries. But if we can feel more confident in setting those firm, clear boundaries and being confident in the fact that even if this person gets their feelings hurt, or they get angry or something, that you set a boundary with them, that their reaction to your boundary is information for you that can oftentimes support the fact of why you felt you needed to set a boundary in the first place, but also it gives you more information about the person. If I set a boundary with someone and they respect it, okay, I now know that they're a respectful person. If I set a boundary and someone, pushes back on it or tries to disrespect it or gets really angry or tries to convince me otherwise, well, now they're giving me information about them. And that's information that I can take to decide how I'm going to continue this engagement, if I can get away, if, it's information for you that you can use to make a decision about what to do next. Assessing your risk is a form of self-defense, just like anything else. As we walk through the world, we're always assessing our risk, whether we're doing it subconsciously or consciously. And avoiding danger is actually self-defense. The best fight is the one you never have to fight. Knowing how to fight is awesome because it gives you a choice in how to respond if there is a worst case scenario. And you know that you have the weapons on your body to be able to use. But avoiding danger is almost always going to be the most preferred outcome if that is possible. And here's the kicker. Here's why I do this work, is because there's over 30 plus years of evidence-based research in peer-reviewed journals that support evidence that show that people who learn self-defense are less likely to have to use their physical skills. Why do you think that is? You can share with me in the chat. Why do you think that is, that people who learn self-defense are less likely to have to use it? I'm just going to give it a moment. I know with Zoom, it takes a bit for folks to type in. So I'm going to talk to you. Yeah, confidence. Great. Yeah, they know how to avoid as part of self-defense. Yep. Excellent. It's those things. They carry themselves with strength. Yes. For all these reasons that you just said. Oh, the question was why the research supports the evidence that people who learn self-defense are less likely to have to use it. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that people who learn self-defense are less likely to have to actually use their physical skills? But yeah, for all the reasons you said, your confidence, you carry yourself with confidence. You carry yourself with strength. You're more likely to speak up for yourself. You feel more confident and comfortable speaking up for yourself. You might have less anxiety about traveling and your ability to protect yourself if you need. Yeah, the way they carry themselves. They're also more aware of their surroundings. Yes, all of those reasons. The vibe they radiate. Yes, all of those things. Support. There's a study that was done. Goodness, I should have looked it up so I could give you the exact site reference, but I believe it was from a sociologist from the University of Oregon named Jocelyn Hollander, who's done a lot of work on this, as so has Charlene Sen, who's in Canada. And they've done a lot of work on this in empowerment self-defense. And in some of their studies that they've done with college-age women showed that college-age women that were in the study that took the self-defense class were up to 50% less likely to experience sexual violence than the control group. 50% reduction in experiencing violence by taking self-defense. I mean, those are huge, huge numbers that support that this type of training can help us not only in preventing violence, but also in living an empowered life, no matter where we go. They apply to so many different aspects of our life as well. Let's see. So let's just talk about some really simple ones that I've already discussed. First is to trust your intuition. How many of us have ever ignored it? I'll raise my hand because yes, I have ignored my intuition. I think we all have at some point, but our intuition is designed to protect us from danger. And when we can trust that feeling and understand that it is there to try to help us avoid danger, then we can really ramp up our awareness and our ability to manage our situation. So your intuition is really key. And a question that's been coming up lately that I just want to discuss right now is a lot of people say, well, how do I know if it's my intuition or if it's anxiety or if it's bias or if it's stereotype or if it is, past trauma or past experiences that I am kind of reliving in this moment? How do I know? And full disclosure, I am not a therapist or a counselor. So I always suggest to those that if they have someone that they can talk to, that they bring that up with a professional to find out if they have some strategies surrounding that. But what I can say with the information and the knowledge that I have is to ask yourself this question. Do I feel unsafe or do I feel uncomfortable? And allow that to kind of guide your interactions. And if you're not sure if the feeling you're having is intuition or not, I am still going to advise that you get to a safe place, remove yourself from the situation if you can, get to a safe place And then ask yourself those questions later, and then kind of dive into it later, but get safe first. The second thing, as we've talked about a lot, is awareness. Yes, awareness is important. Sometimes we are made to feel, at least I am made to feel, you can tell me if you're also made to feel this way, that in order to be aware, we have to be like looking around every second of the day to, constantly on high alert. And I don't teach awareness like that. I just want us to be conscious of what's going on around us and accepting the things that we see and allowing ourselves to make decisions based on that. So you can ask yourself these questions in your head. What's happening and what can I do? So I want to quickly share a couple of inspiring stories with you about my travels. This is from, I was scuba diving in Koh Samui in Thailand. I got scuba certified after I had already been scuba diving several times. And that's because they offer Discover Scuba courses where if you're not certified, you go and you take a class for like an hour. They teach you some basics. You can only dive to 30 feet and you go with an instructor. That's a Discover Scuba course. So I did that several times. I did it in Hawaii a couple of times. And I took my childhood bucket list trip to Australia to dive the Great Barrier Reef. And I did that all without being certified in scuba diving. So that, I hope, is inspirational for you, that there are things that you can do. You may feel like you're limited by certain things, but you know what? There's always a way. And so I found a way. I had seen a picture in a book for the Great Barrier Reef when I was in the first grade. And I remember looking at that picture and all the colors and the fish and saying, I'm going to go here one day. And in 2016, I did. I went on a solo trip to New Zealand and Australia, and I got to dive the Great Barrier Reef. And then I got certified afterwards. I got certified in LA, which it was so cold when I did my training. I did it in the winter and the water was freezing. But here I'm in Thailand. It was much warmer water. I'm wearing a rash guard because there are baby jellyfish in the water that they won't really hurt you, but they'll sting when they touch your skin. So that's why I'm wearing a rash guard. But the interesting thing about this trip is I think it was one of the first trips that I took after being fully certified, and kind of that feeling of being on my own. I mean, you still have to dive with a dive buddy. That's one thing that you can't do solo, or it's not recommended you do solo, is you don't want to scuba dive solo because you're underwater. It's a dangerous sport. And, if you run into trouble with your air or your regulator, any of your equipment, you want to have a buddy there that can help you assist. But I went to Thailand solo and then did a dive trip there and got to dive. And the funny thing about this trip and this experience, it was a great experience. Since I was solo, everyone else was there, it was like a couple. And I ended up diving with an instructor, not because I needed to, but because the instructor was the only person that was available to dive with me. And we were diving and it was great. And we were swimming around, and then I felt cold and hot in the water. So I could feel the currents in the water, cold and hot. And I was like, oh, this is really cool. There's currents going around, and I'm following the instructor, and pretty soon I don't see any coral. I don't see any fish. And I thought, oh, great. He's taking me out farther because I was hoping to see whale sharks. And I'm like, oh, great. He's taking me out so we can hopefully see whale sharks. So we're swimming and following him. Pretty soon he stops and he gives us a signal that we're going to go up. So we do our safety stop. We come up, pop our heads out of the water, and guess where the boat is? The boat is really far away. The boat was, it's hard to tell when you're in the water, but at least a quarter mile away, if not more. It was way over there. And I looked at him and he goes, oh my gosh, I am so sorry. We got stuck in a current. Did you feel it? And I said, yeah, I felt it, but I just figured you were taking me out to find whale sharks. And he said, no, but here's the thing. When you scuba dive, you always have a whistle, which you can see it on my, if you're looking at the picture, it's the left shoulder, the thing that looks like a upside down heart, orange thing, that's a whistle. For audible. So if something like that happens, you can whistle and they could hear you. You also have a visual emergency. So it's a buoy that you fill with air and you stick it out, it sticks straight up out of the water so they can see it. So we both had our emergency things available for us to use. A fishing boat that was not far away came over and asked us if we were okay. And we said, yes, that our boat was over there. Then they saw us and came over. And so he kept apologizing and I had no stress. I was like, I had no idea. It was fine. I have my air. We have air, we're out of the water, we can just float here, we don't even have to stress, and they see us. And I felt like that was such a great example and how it can apply to other safety situations not in the water, is that sometimes unexpected things happen, and when you are empowered with information to be able to make the best choices that you can in the moment, that can help you feel more calm in those moments. That could have been a really scary experience if I was scared. but I wasn't. I kind of knew what was going on, and I had the safety training, because with scuba training, there's so much training. I don't know if anyone in here is scuba certified, anyone, but so much of your training is what to do in an emergency, what to do if your regulator fails, what to do if you run out of air, what to do if you get caught up in kelp, what to do, and all these things. But the whole point is that you hope to never have to experience those. And I feel like self-defense in a lot of ways is like that. I'm teaching people things that they can do in those worst case scenarios, but of course, avoiding those things is ideal. But if you need to deal with it, you can do it. So your voice is like your whistle. Your visual, the buoy that sticks out of the water is like the ready stance that I teach. Your physical boundary, so there's things that can apply. And I felt like it was a really, fun experience that could have been scarier, but it wasn't scary. So I like to share that story. And here is from New Zealand. So I actually went to New Zealand first, and then I went to Australia when I was telling you about my trip. This was also a solo trip. I hiked this trail. This is the Tongariro Alpine crossing, and I hiked it solo, except for the last 3 miles. I ran into 2 other hikers who were also from the US. They were from Illinois, and we finished it together. But I remember coming to the very top, and I was looking down, and at first, you couldn't see the lakes. You could just see a little speck of blue. And I thought, oh, what's that over there? And as you come down further, then you see the rest of the lakes. And these are known as the Emerald Lakes. And to just be there and to take in all of that in the moment, just in solid. I mean, there's other people around, obviously, but by myself in solitude, and to stop as many times as I wanted to stop, it was really great. And this whole landscape is volcanic. You're hiking in between 2 active volcanoes. That steam you see is actually steam coming up from the ground because it's geothermal. It's geothermally active land. That was a mouthful. But such an amazing trip to be able to do this solo. And then the last thing I'll show you is I love hiking. This is an alpine lake in the Eastern Sierra Nevadas in California. This is 5 miles up a trail. The elevation's around 10,000 feet, and just look at the pristine. This picture has not been pumped up. There's no editing. This is the picture straight from my camera, what I saw with my eyes. And I set up a tripod to get this shot. There was nobody with me. I was solo hiking, but I enjoy solo hiking in nature for those same reasons, because I like to feel connected in my own way. For me, it's meditative, and I know that I can handle myself if something goes wrong. And that's what the self-defense skills teaches me, and it gives me that as the tools in my back pocket, that if someone's looking for trouble, they're going to be really upset that they messed with me. And I want everyone to feel like that. That someone should be sorry that they tried to mess with you, because we are all someone that no one wants to mess with. No one deserves violence. And no matter what happens, it's never your fault if violence happens to you. I want to give people skills and tools so that they can feel confident in their ability to handle themselves if they have to face something, if something does come up. I want to leave you with 3 simple self-defense strategies that you can take and start using today, in addition to intuition and awareness. The first is to breathe. Yes, breathing is so important. We need it to live, but sometimes when we're stressed, we hold our breath. But breathe. If something is stressful, if you're unsure of a situation, remind yourself to breathe. It gives you a moment to assess and figure out what to do. And it helps keep oxygen to your brain so that you can think through what your options are. The second thing is to respond. I teach several different ways to respond in my sessions, but you're going to respond to the threat, to the danger, to the uncomfortable situation in a way that works best for you, with the ultimate goal being escape. How do I get away? How do I disengage from this situation? How do I get to safety? And that escape may come before a physical confrontation, or you might have to use your physical skills so that you can escape. And that's the point of the physical skills. The physical skills are there to defend yourself till a point that you can get to safety, and then you get to safety as quickly as you can. Now, I do have a couple of minutes left, right, Colleen? Do I have a couple minutes? Okay, great. So I want to also leave you with some solo travel safety tips. I know a lot of y'all said that you were solo travelers, which is wonderful. I love that. Oh, Lynn, I love your question. I'm gonna quickly go through this, and then I'm gonna answer your question. So, and wild animals. Oh, I love it. Yes, I'll get to both. Actually, you know what? How about I just get to the questions? How about I just end with the questions? I think that will be better. So let me just do that. Let me just skip through all this, and I'm gonna get to my little question slide, because I'll just leave this up. So yeah, if someone has a weapon, First, I can't speak for statistics in other countries, but for the US, it's around 11% of assaults involve a weapon. So not very many assaults include a weapon. Most assailants are single unarmed assailants, but I know that weapons tends to be a fear, a concern that we have because we hear about it in the news because it's very sensational. If someone has a weapon and you can run. Like there's no glory in having to fight a weapon if you could just run away. You see it and you can get away, get away. If you can't get away, then the idea is to ask yourself what they want. Figure out what they want. Do they want your stuff? If someone wants your stuff, my advice is going to be to give them your stuff. But I am ultimately not the one that can make that decision. You have to decide what's worth fighting for, what's worth dying for. And my stuff can be replaced. I can't. If they want my stuff, I'm going to give them my stuff. If they want me, that's another story. The one absolute that we give when I'm teaching with Girls Fight Back or with Impact Personal Safety, we teach that you never go to a second location with someone, even if they have a weapon. The chances of survival, the rates of survival drop when you go to a second location with someone. So our advice is to fight if you need to fight in that moment, because there's more likelihood that this is happening in a place where someone can hear you, where help is nearby, where you would most likely have cell signals to be able to get help if you needed, versus being driven miles, hours away somewhere where now help is going to be much harder to come by. And if someone has a weapon, and you have to fight, like say, well, if they have a weapon, they want you, you're going to try to use your verbal skills. Okay, look, you don't want to do this. I'm just trying to get home. You can walk away right now. Whatever you can say, use your verbal skills to try to humanize yourself, turn yourself into a person. I have someone waiting for me at home, or I have, whatever it is that you need to say, you're going to try to use your voice and talk to them out of it. And that can also be a distraction to them, because now you're talking to them, they're maybe a little distracted. And then if you have to fight, you're going to fight. And when you're fighting someone who has a weapon, the strategies are very similar to when they don't have a weapon, but just now you have a weapon to keep in mind. And this, of course, is advanced training. Like we teach an advanced weapons class after people have already taken a self-defense class when they've learned how to use their body. But there have been people who have had to fight someone with a weapon that have not had any training and have successfully defended themselves. You just have to know that you're worth fighting for. That is the number one tool that I can leave. You have to know that you are worth fighting for. They have a weapon. You're just going to try to control that weapon, trap it to yourself, trap it to them, trap it in some way to the ground, whatever you can do, in whatever way you can do it. You can take a class to learn more ways. But what I can tell you here is trap it to you, to them, or the ground, and strike them with every weapon on your body you have, your knees, your feet, your elbow, your hands, whatever you can do. And then if you can disarm the weapon, disarm it, or if you have the space to get away, you get away and you run. Okay. But it's trap the weapon and then try to control the weapon and then disarm the weapon if you can and get to safety. And if there's wild animals, oh, Lynn, yes. So if you encounter wild animals on the trail, oftentimes it is a surprise, right? We are not purposely going out trying to have an encounter with a black bear or a mountain lion. It's often a surprise. So how we can avoid surprise interactions with wildlife is to make sure that when we're hiking, that we stick to trails, that we make noise. If you're in bear country, a bear bell is a great idea, or whistle and sing aloud. If you're solo, as I often am, make noise so that they know you're there and they can take steps to avoid you so that you don't run up on them as a surprise. Now, depending on what animal you run into, that's going to determine how you respond. And I always suggest that if you are hiking solo, make sure you check what animals you're most likely to run into where you're hiking so that you can be prepared. If it is a mountain lion that you run into, the idea is to make yourself look as big as possible. You want to use a loud, deep voice. You don't want to, have a really high-pitched voice. Use a loud, deep voice, and you're going to try to back away slowly. You don't want to turn your back. You're just going to back away slowly and make yourself look as big as possible. And if the mountain lion is actually attacking, you fight. Because what I learned in my survival class is that if a mountain lion is attacking you, it's your dinner. It's not territorial. They want to eat you. And you're just going to fight. So you just fight back with whatever you have. There's sticks on the ground, rocks, whatever. If it's bears, black bears and grizzly bears, they look different. And which one it is going to determine how you respond. If it's a black bear that you just kind of happen upon, the advice for that is, again, talk in a low, calm voice, no yelling, just a calm voice. And slowly back away if you can, give it its space. And if a black bear attacks, you fight back. If it's a grizzly bear, you, again, try to back away slowly, try to give it as much space as possible. If a grizzly bear attacks and it is like a territorial, like it's a mama with cubs, the advice given by most experts is to stand your ground until the bear is close to you. If you have bear spray, you can deploy the bear spray with either black bear or grizzly bear. But if it's a grizzly bear attacking, you get on your stomach, hands behind your neck, and dig your toes into the ground, keep your backpack on, and try not to let it tip you over by keeping your elbows, when your elbows are out like this, if it's trying to tip you over, because it's trying to get to your juicy bits. So we want to make sure that we keep that as safe as possible, like pressed against the ground, and stay like that until the bear disengages. But if the bear is attacking and it's predatory, the bear has been stalking you, or it's shown up at your campsite and then it's attacking, then the advice is to fight back right away. But I know that's a lot of information, and it's perishable skills if it's not something you're doing all the time. So I just recommend that if you are going to hike in an area, just look up what the recommendations are for the wildlife in that area and just be really familiar with it, because your life could depend on it. How you respond is going to depend on the animal. That's a great question. Are there any other questions?
That was really great, Nicole. Thank you so much. I wrote in the chat, I said, be prepared before you go out on a solo trip with everything you need, and let someone else know that where you're going and when you're going is another good idea. That's why on hiking trails, they have you fill out that paperwork before you go back to hike, that's usually sitting there at the beginning of the trail. And Lynn, there's bear sprays out there and things like that. So if you're hiking, say in Montana or in areas where we know there's grizzly bears and things of that nature, then you definitely want to just make sure you have that stuff with you at all times. Even it could be the horn, or the spray, because usually the horn scares them off. They're usually not about, attacking. Mace when walking alone, yes. I like mace because it shoots really far away. You don't like mace?
I don't recommend it. No, I don't advise it. I don't recommend it. When it comes to weapons, I advocate for education, but I don't advocate for tools like that, because unless you're training with it. Three rules I give about weapons is whatever you use, you have to train with it, because adrenaline can affect your fine motor skills by reducing them. And if you're not training with it, it's likely it's not going to respond in the way you're expecting it to. So you have to train with it. The second thing is that anything you bring into a fight, it can be used against you, especially if it's not something that you've been training with. Yeah. And the third thing is that our mind and our body are the most powerful tools that we have. And I want to encourage people to rely on those versus relying on something else, putting your safety into something else, hoping that it'll save you, and instead relying on yourself.
Absolutely.
Those are just my thoughts on that.
No, I love that. Thank you so much so I put her website in there for all of you. You can go sign up for her newsletter. I've signed up for her newsletter so I can follow her and everything she's doing and get more tips. In our next week's Teaching Tuesday, I think you guys saw that Dawn Cermak was in here earlier. She's going to be teaching on the 4 pillars of profitability for your business. This is definitely something you're going to want to attend. She has a really great survey that she's going to put you through for you to realize where are the holes in your business that you need to be focusing on for true profitability. And it's more than just taxes. It really is so many other areas of your business. So make sure you guys sign up for that. I just dropped in the link for next week's Teaching Tuesday. So you guys can get signed up for that. Same time, same place. We will be here next Tuesday. Nicole, thank you so much for empowering us to keep us safe when we travel. And maybe this will give everyone here the opportunity to feel more confident about wanting to travel on their own, especially if they're not traveling on their own because of the fears that they have. Definitely connect with Nicole. You guys follow her on Instagram, connect with her on the website for you to get her newsletters. That way you can get more tips from her and learn more about how you can travel alone and be independent, but yet confident in your travels. So thank you, Nicole, so much for being with us today. Ladies, thank you for joining us, and we'll see you all next week. Take care now. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.